Is Venezuela's referendum an action that aggravates the Guyana border dispute? That's what we will explore today. Against the ICJ order, Venezuela went ahead and held a consultative referendum last Sunday. Observers in the region and abroad consider it a brazen and disrespectful decision, one that may be in violation of a recent order by the International Court of Justice. You're watching The Final Takeaway. Subscribe today and hit the bell icon to receive instant updates. Join this community and let's keep the momentum going. In an unprecedented ruling on December 3rd, 2023, all of the court judges in the border dispute case agreed that Venezuela should withhold itself from fueling the dispute with Guyana over who owns Essequibo. Essequibo is a large region of Guyana which makes up more than 60% of the country. The area is also home to an estimated 125,000 people, including a large population of indigenous people known as the Amerindians. Here is the unanimous decision that was handed down by the ICJ.
The court indicates the following provisional measures. 1. Unanimously. Pending a final decision in the case, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela shall refrain from taking any action which would modify the situation that currently prevails in the territory in dispute.
ICJ's President John Donoghue also stated in summary that the ruling, quote-unquote, aims at ensuring the non-aggravation of the dispute between the two countries. In other words, the ruling is designed to block Venezuela from trying to change the status quo. I would have added through actions, any overt or covert actions or strategies to the ruling, since we are dealing with a manipulative leader here. The ICJ's ruling came after Guyana requested measures to be put in place to prevent the referendum from going forward because of a question on the ballot that seeks voters' approval for the Venezuelan government to conduct an annexation of Essequibo. The ICJ order, which is properly called provisional measures, intends to help prevent the controversy from escalating until a final decision is made on the case. There is no telling how long it will take for the court to finally decide on the border that's in dispute, or the region, meaning Essequibo. Venezuela nevertheless went ahead on Sunday and held the special elections, which allows voters to agree or disagree for their country to invade and take over Essequibo. It's not surprising that the country refuses to abide by the court's decision. The country already rejected the jurisdiction of the ICJ in favor of letting the citizens decide. In fact, voters were also asked to reject the ICJ's power to determine the border dispute over Essequibo and to reject the 1899 ruling that settled the dispute over Essequibo in favor of Guyana, and at that time it was British Guyana who came together with Venezuela, and there was a tribunal in Paris, and that award was given in favor of Guyana. And in Guyana's eyes, the 1899 ruling is a full and final settlement, and they are standing by that. Regarding the court's decision, Venezuela claimed the ICJ ruled in their favor, marking it as a landslide victory. This left the situation in a sort of conundrum. By carrying out the election, is that considered an action that can aggravate the current conflict with Guyana? Does it go against the non-aggravation clause in the provisional measures to prevent things from escalating between the two countries? It depends on who you ask. President Maduro's government does not think so. In statements to the ICJ during a hearing in November, Venezuela said that allowing the citizens to vote to decide by way of a referendum is, and I'm quoting here, an exercise of sovereignty, that none of the outcomes of the referendum will have any adverse impact on Guyana's alleged title over the disputed territory, and even less create a risk of irreparable harm to Guyana. Here's my question. If that's the case, why then hold a referendum? Why even bother? What then is the purpose? Is the referendum being used as a weapon to intimidate or bully Guyana and create fear of an impending invasion? Or is it a plot to grab the rich oil reserves and other valuable resources located in Essequibo's land and water mass? That could very well be the case. Many experts believe the Venezuelan government knows the severe sanctions and backlash it could face from acting on what the people of Venezuela decided in the referendum. Perhaps Maduro is just a strong bark and no bite. We shall see. On the Guyana side, Guyana's government believes holding the referendum may very well constitute a violation of the ICJ order against Venezuela. Upon close scrutiny, you may realize we are walking a thin line here. Let's go back to the ruling by the World Court. The decision reads in part that, and I'm quoting, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela shall refrain from taking any action which would modify the situation that currently prevails in the territory in dispute, meaning Essequibo. Honestly, there needs to be more clarity on the responsibilities and obligations of Venezuela in this instance. This is a serious matter that can alter the course of history and change lives in an unpleasant way. In this case, the court failed to outline what actions would be considered a breach of the ruling as far as it relates to acts that are considered invasion or attempts to invade the disputed territory by Venezuela or violate Guyana's sovereignty. The Venezuelan government capitalized on the ambiguity in the ruling, and you really can't blame them for that. I believe the ICJ could have gone a step further to make things clearer and even itemize what actions would place Venezuela in breach of the December 3rd ruling. On the Guyana side of things, the government sees the holding of the referendum as a breach. While it has no problem with the referendum itself, and it never had a problem with the referendum, it is question number 5 on the ballot that can open the door for Maduro's government to invade Essequibo. Question number 5 asks voters to agree or disagree as to whether Venezuela should take the disputed territory and make it a Venezuelan state. Question number 5 also seeks the voters' approval to redraw the Venezuelan map to show Essequibo as their territory and grant citizenship and ID cards to Guyanese. I consider this a very brazen proposal by the Venezuelan government and intended actions that violate the sovereignty of the cooperative Republic of Guyana. By not expressly stating what actions by Venezuela will be taken as a breach of the ICJ order, the two countries found themselves in a dilemma. Guyana's sovereignty is at stake. Its safety is at stake. Citizens' lives are at stake. Men, women, and children, young and old. Now is not the time to be ambiguous. Guyanese want to feel reassured and relieved that their country will not suffer an invasion, military or otherwise. Now that the referendum is over, it is yet to be seen whether Venezuela will stay true to its plans and attempt to annex Essequibo. In a press release last week, the Commonwealth Secretariat expressed what it describes as, and I'm quoting here, deep concern that the planned referendum will potentially be a license to violate the territorial integrity of Guyana and constitute an aggravation of the dispute, which the December 1st, 2023 decision of the ICJ discourages. The Commonwealth reiterates our collective faith in due process, respect for national territorial sovereignty, international law, global order, peace and security, and cordial international relations in the Caribbean and the Latin American region. The Vice President of Guyana, Barrett Jackdio, continues to reiterate that Guyana is a peaceful nation, but the country is ready to defend itself by any means whatsoever.
Success there. We have explored the diplomatic route and we have had overwhelming success there where the world supports us. And we are now exploring defense cooperation with several countries. And we're not a belligerent country, but if any country, and particularly Venezuela, thinks that they can alter the boundary established by the 1899 tribunal unilaterally, then we'd defend our country by any means whatsoever.
Here's the final takeaway. President Maduro's government has no respect for the rule of law, international law, global order, peaceful negotiations, or diplomacy. They also have no regard for the 1899 arbitral award that constitutes a full and final settlement of the disagreement over who owns Essequibo, unless the International Court of Justice decides otherwise. Venezuela has already agreed that the court has the legal right to decide the dispute. So it is interesting that it went ahead with its referendum asking its citizens to reject the jurisdiction of the ICJ over this case. I have to say, I think the ICJ was a bit derelict in its duties. It had the opportunity to clearly outline what actions by Venezuela would be a breach of the court's cautionary decision and provisional measures. The judges ought to have known Maduro's government could and maybe would manipulate the text in the ruling to suit their own agenda, so they could have and they should have erred on the side of caution given the knowledge they have about how President Maduro runs his country. To me, it is a major missed opportunity on the part of the ICJ here. And because of that, because of Maduro's personality as a leader and the threats and perhaps what he's capable of doing by himself, his government by itself and their allies, more stringent provisional measures should have been put in place to provide a greater sense of relief for Guyana, and Guyanese and stakeholders. Whatever Maduro's government decides as far as acting on the citizens' votes to grab Essequibo, Guyana is feeling confident due to the overwhelming support it's receiving, as well as reassurance that its allies are collaborating to help defend its borders. Thank you for watching. Here's another chance to subscribe before you go if you haven't yet. I look forward to hearing your views in the comment section. Like and share all of our videos to spread awareness of the ongoing rift between Guyana and Venezuela. See you in the next video.